Good evening. I want to thank everybody for coming out to our council meeting tonight, and we'll call the meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. If I can have roll call starting on my left.
Dumont present.
Salvato present.
Figueroa present.
Stokes present.
Okay, and Sayer is absent. So we have established a quorum. We'll do the invocation and pledge of allegiance. We can declare if anyone has a conflict.
No conflicts for Dumont.
No conflicts.
No conflict.
No known conflict.
Okay. On agenda item number 5, we have a presentation from the Texas Hotel and Lodging Association regarding municipal hotel occupancy tax. If you're here, okay, stand up and introduce yourself.
Sure. Right here, Mayor?
That's it. If you'll stand real
Right,
close
fantastic.
to the mic.
You
Thanks.
got it. You got it. Hi, my name is Justin Bregel. I'm General Counsel for the Texas Hotel and Lodging Association. Thanks for inviting me to come to Tool this evening. It's a pleasure to be here. It's my first time. Hope it won't be my last. It's very nice to be here, like I said. So you all asked us to come and brief you all on the law regarding use of local hotel occupancy tax revenue. So that's what I'm here to do. I'll answer any questions you all may have. Usually the way I do this is I'll lay out what the state law is, and then any sort of questions that come up, I'll take them along the way and save some time at the end there as well. I'll stay as long as you want, but I know you've got an agenda and lots of other people here too, so I'll be very respectful of that as well. So again, thanks for having me. We do a lot of these sessions for cities across the state of Texas, a lot of hotel occupancy tax work. Our association is a nonprofit trade association. Do you mean to get closer to the mic?
No, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Try to get Kimberly's attention.
Okay, so that's good. We're a nonprofit trade association. We were founded in 1903 by a group of hoteliers that were looking to better the industry. Since the 1970s and beyond, we've really taken up an expertise in hotel occupancy tax law and get a lot of questions from communities just like yours about how the city may use its hotel tax revenue, what state law allows, what it doesn't allow, what are some ideas for use of hotel tax revenue, et cetera, right? We get about 600 calls for legal advice every month. About half of those come in from hotel operators with just general hotel operation questions. But the other half come in from cities just like yours with questions about whether or not you can use your hotel tax revenue for a particular thing. So we spend a lot of time dealing with this. We spend a lot of time with the legislature when the legislature's in session working on hotel issues and hotel tax issues. And so this is a common topic for us to come and advise you all on. So, you know, we're pretty far away in the calendar from when you all typically start talking about your budget. Maybe you're starting to think about that now, Julius. You're probably always thinking about it, but you know, usually in late summer you start thinking about your budget and what you're going to be doing with that revenue for the next fiscal year. And the number one source of your revenue that you expend through your budget process is going to be property tax revenue, right? That's the majority of the revenue that cities in Texas take in. And property tax revenue and most sales tax revenue and some of these other sources of revenue for the city that you have in your budget can be used for just about anything that benefits the public good for the fine citizens of Tool, right? So if you need to pay for to hire a new police officer for your police department or replace one of their vehicles, you can do that with your property tax revenue. You can do that with your sales tax revenue. You need to repave a sidewalk, you can do that with your property tax revenue. But hotel tax revenue is different, and it's always been different. It's been different since the hotel tax was first enacted in 1969. Hotel taxes under state law are referred to as dedicated taxes. And what that means is that the legislature, through state legislation, has set forth rules and regulations for how all of the cities across the state of Texas and counties with a hotel tax, how those local governments can expend that hotel tax revenue. And that's what we're here to talk about today, right? These rules are found in Chapter 351 of the Texas Tax Code. Everything I'm going to talk about here tonight is going to be mostly coming from Chapter 351 of the Texas Tax Code. But I need to probably back up just a second. I'm a hotel guy. I'm a hotel lawyer. But what's a hotel anyway, right? What are we talking about when we talk about hotel taxes? Who pays this tax? Who collects this tax? How does this call come into play? And this is really relevant for you all, right? Because you don't have any traditional hotels in the city of Toole. You have short-term rentals, right? You have people that own lake houses or lake properties, or maybe other properties as well, but mostly lake properties, and they rent those properties out on a short-term basis for less than 30 days at a time. In Texas, the hotel tax applies to the rental of a building to the public for less than 30 days. A building, that's it. Right? So if you own a house in the city of Toole and you decide you want to rent it for a weekend, even though it's your primary residence, that's fine. You can do that. But when you go and rent that house to somebody, you're going to have to collect the state 6% hotel tax, and you're going to have to collect the city's 7% hotel occupancy tax. And it doesn't matter whether or not you rent that house just to a friend or, through, they send Venmo you the cash. Or it doesn't matter whether or not you list it on, say, a platform like Airbnb or Vrbo, right? It doesn't matter how we advertise or book these lodging properties. If it's rented to the public for less than 30 days, it's a hotel for purposes of the hotel tax, and hotel taxes are going to be due and paid by the guest, right? The maximum rate for municipalities is 7% for most cities, and that local hotel tax is collected locally. That's different from, say, the sales tax. You have a local sales tax. Comptroller collects all of the sales tax, the state and the local component, and then sends you your portion of that. Not the case with local hotel tax. You're required to collect that hotel tax from every one of those operators. At least that's the law as it exists today. I'm working on some legislation with our friends over at Airbnb that might change that starting in 2027. I think you'd probably welcome that change. Happy to talk about that if there's time and if you're interested, but in the interest of time, I'll just leave that there, right? So that's where the hotel tax comes from. It comes from those guests that are staying at your lodging properties in the city for less than 30 days. Now, the reason why you called me out here was to talk about, okay, we know about collecting the tax. What about spending the hotel tax, Justin? That's what we really want to know. What are the rules and laws regarding the expenditure of hotel tax revenue? Well, like I said, the hotel tax, the local hotel tax dates back to 1969. The city of Dallas wanted to construct its first convention center facility, went to the legislature and asked for authority for a local hotel tax. 2 years later, the legislature expanded that authority to all municipalities, and every city may levy a hotel tax. But with that authority under the tax code, the legislature set regulations for how cities may use hotel tax revenue. And there's a two-part test for every expenditure of hotel tax revenue under the statute. First, every expenditure must directly promote and enhance tourism in the hotel and convention industry. That's a long sentence. We can talk about the various components of it. Every expenditure, so that's not some, that's not most, that's every dollar of hot revenue that you've collected now and every dollar of hot revenue that you collect in the future must comply with this two-part test. Not most, not some, all of it. Every expenditure must directly promote tourism and the hotel and convention industry. Well, that word directly has meaning. There needs to be a connection, or as lawyers will say, there needs to be a nexus between spending that dollar of hot revenue and tourism and hotel activity, right? So you may get a question about whether or not, can we use hotel tax revenue, say, I don't know, to fund a city street somewhere in the city of Toole? Can we use hotel tax revenue for that purpose? Well, it's not going to comply with the second part of the two-part test that I'm going to talk about, but it's not also a direct expenditure that directly promotes tourism and the hotel and connection industry. In other words, there's not a nexus or connection between spending that dollar of hot revenue and people coming to Toole to spend the night, right? Well, what are some examples where there is that connection? Well, advertising and promoting the area as a tourism destination, maybe advertising and promoting that event that tourists and hotel guests are going to attend, concert, a festival, something along those lines. Maybe funding a convention center facility or a visitor information center where tourists and hotel guests are going to come and spend the night, right? Maybe a sporting event that tourists and hotel guests are going to attend. There needs to be a connection. This is the bottom line. A connection between spending that dollar of hot revenue and people who are coming to the area, whether they came for that event or not, or they're here anyway. There needs to be a nexus in the law. You've heard this shorthanded. I know you have. You've heard it say, someone say, does it put heads in beds? You all heard that before? Does it put heads in beds? Well, that's what we're talking about here. The heads in the beds are the people that are staying in your short-term rentals, and there needs to be a connection between spending that dollar of hot revenue and that tourism and hotel activity. Now, I mentioned the legislature and the Capitol, and we do a lot of work at the Capitol. I get called into meetings every legislative session. Cities and counties have ideas about how they want to maybe use hotel tax revenue in a way that doesn't exist in the law. Say, Justin, can you help us out with this? We'd like to pass a bill that will allow us to use hotel tax revenue for, say, a city park, right? Or maybe for, I don't know, something else, the police department, the fire department. Can we use hot revenue for that? We just concluded the South by Southwest in Austin. Can we use hotel tax revenue to fund the police department during South by Southwest? And I get a question at some point, say, Justin, why is there this requirement? Why are hotels, the hotel industry have this requirement? Why does the tourism industry have this requirement? And the answer why this test exists and why it dates back to 1969 has to do with the fact that this is an economic development tax, and it has to do with the tax rates involved, right? So cities can levy up to a 7% hot rate. The state of Texas has its own 6% hot. So for most areas of Texas, we're looking at a baseline of 13%. Counties oftentimes will levy a few percent on top of that. So now a lot of places we're looking at 15%. Maybe we're adding 2% more for a sports stadium in our bigger cities. Maybe 2% more for a tourism district like in Austin. And all of a sudden we're at 19%. A 19% hotel tax rate. Now you're at 13. You're not at 19. Austin's at 19%. 19. That's a higher rate of tax than you'll pay anywhere in the state of California or New York or Louisiana or Florida, right? You'll pay a higher rate of tax in Austin, Texas than you will in any one of those places. But it might surprise you that it was our industry, the hotel industry, that asked for that. We asked for that. We asked for the city of Austin to go to 19%. We lobbied the voters in Austin to approve an additional 2% tax. We did it in Dallas. We did it in San Antonio, right? We did it all over the state. And the reason why our industry has asked for this high rate of tax is because this is an economic development tool. This allows you to bring more people to the area. That was the compromise. That was a compromise that goes back to 1969 and it exists at the legislature every year whenever new legislation is proposed to expand the use of this hotel tax, right? That was the whole idea behind this. All right, so we have this two-part test, heads and beds, right? Does the proposed expenditure directly promote tourism in the hotel and convention industry? Is there a connection? The answer is yes. That's great. We can go on to the second part of the two-part test, which is a series of categories that are available to you. Now, you have 8 categories available to you. Some cities have 9, and there's some cities with special authority too. We won't be here all night, but I'll touch on every one of them just at least briefly. Category 1, the original category. I mentioned Dallas and their convention center in 1969. First category. You can use hotel tax revenue for a convention center facility. This is a building that's owned by a city or county government that's primarily used for meetings involving tourists. Well, a tourist is somebody visiting from another city or another county, right? So somebody who drives over the bridge from Gun Barrel City for the day, guess what? They're a tourist in the city of Toul. I'm not spending the night here. I'm a tourist in the city of Toul. I'm visiting from another city or another county. Now, for most of these expenditures categories, we need to have a heads and beds component, an actual tourism and hotel industry component associated with it. But for the convention center category, since that's part of the convention industry, it's enough for us to fund a convention center facility if the majority of the events that are held at that facility involve people from outside the area. So what can we expend the money on in this category? Buying land for a convention center, building it, construction costs, design, staffing it, equipping it, paying the utilities, all of that can be paid for with hotel tax revenue, provided this convention center is primarily used for meetings involving tourists, and the city or another governmental entity owns or operates the facility. In this same category is a visitor information center. A visitor information center is a building or a portion of a building that's used to disseminate information to tourists. You can use hotel tax revenue for anything associated with that visitor information center, staffing it, buying the land, equipping it, et cetera, right? You can use hot revenue for that purpose. That's category 1. Any questions so far? Julius.
You said a tourist is anybody who's visiting?
A tourist is anybody visiting from another city or another county.
Not even if they're staying the night?
For the convention center category,
Okay.
you can use hotel tax revenue for a facility in which the majority of the events involve people from outside the area. For all of the additional categories we're going to get to, we need to have tourism and hotel activity as a necessary component, or some other aspect of the convention industry. But since you don't have like a big convention center, we're really talking about people that are spending the night in an area hotel.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Great clarification
Could
question.
we use our park as a convention center?
It's not a building as far as I know, or is it?
It's not a building, it's a
It's not
park.
a
It's a
building,
park.
so-
Where it would drive people. If we had a pickleball tournament, for example, people from the area came in.
Okay.
Now, we're not driving, we may drive some heads to bed, but I'm talking about the convention category necessarily, that side of it.
So my question for you, I'm going to, to be a typical lawyer, I'm going to ask you a question right back when you ask me a question.
Right.
So is this a building that's primarily used for meetings involving tourists? And I'm going to answer that question because I know the answer is it's going to be no.
Right.
And council member, we're going to talk about other categories that may be applicable here for that particular question. But no, we're talking, it could be this building, right? Could be this building if the majority of the events that are held in this facility involve people from outside the area, meetings of people from outside the area, okay, right? But if we're talking about like a park or a sports facility that's not a building for meetings, I don't think we meet the convention center definition under the plain language of the code.
You said something about heads and beds in the area. Does that mean in the ETJ or the city limits?
The
or-
municipality or its vicinity. So it could be people that are in the, well, let me talk about the ETJ because you mentioned that word, right, or those three letters, ETJ, extraterritorial jurisdiction, if you're not familiar with this. So the city may levy its hotel tax in the ETJ. You have authority to do that. If you don't already, I haven't reviewed your ordinance, but if you don't have it in your ordinance already, you would just amend your ordinance to extend the hotel tax within the ETJ. So the city of Toole's HOT would apply to those lodging properties that are in the ETJ. But you also indicated, Mayor, what about out for a little bit further out, right? Maybe just outside of the ETJ, right? So it's enough if you're attracting people to the area and spend the night in the area, but I think, we have an ROI then issue that crops up, right? If you're using hot revenue to promote events that are putting heads in other cities' beds, then is that going to be the best use of your hotel tax revenue? Now, you may be thinking, well, no, we have such a big event, Justin, that we're driving hotel room nights within the city of Toole and our ETJ, and there's going to be spillover in surrounding unincorporated areas or in the jurisdiction of other municipalities. That's fine. That's great. I think that's wonderful. But, if we have events where really the majority of the people that are coming into town to attend are spending the night in other cities, hotels, lodging properties, I think it's appropriate for that organization that's applying for those hotel tax funds to also go to those other cities and ask for hot money from those cities as well, right? Because if that's really where the economic activity is occurring, it seems to make sense to me that that's where some of that hot revenue should be spent. But that's going to be a local decision. It's going to be a local decision, right? How you want to use your hotel tax revenue, as long as it's complying with this two-part test. The level of return on investment that you want to see from that funding is going to be a decision that's made by you all. Right here.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. That's category 1. Category 2 is real easy. The registration of convention delegates. If we have a big convention or conference, we need to hire people to work registration for that convention. We can do that under category 2. We typically see this in big convention halls, but you could do it anywhere. The registration of convention delegates, hiring folks to be able to facilitate your meeting or event at the convention center. Category 3. Advertising and promotion, or in the language of the code, advertising and conducting solicitations to attract tourists and hotel guests to the municipality or its vicinity. There's the word vicinity. So advertising and promotion. I touched on this briefly earlier. We can use hotel tax revenue to advertise and promote our city as a tourism destination. Now, maybe we're using hot revenue under this category to create a branding campaign and to advertise Toole overall as a destination, right? Putting up billboards on the interstates or buying ads in Texas Monthly that advertise Toole. We could do all of that under this particular category, right? Advertising and promoting the area as a tourism destination. But further than that, or more than that, maybe you've got an event organizer who's coming to you and says, you know what, I want to hold this big event in Toole. I don't know, name whatever event it is. It doesn't matter. It's a big event, and I think that if I advertise this event, that I'm going to bring more people to the area than would otherwise attend. can I get some hot revenue from the city to pay for some of this advertising that I want to do? Sure, right? That's advertising and promoting the area as a tourism destination and advertising and promoting events and activities that bring more people to the area. In our larger cities, we use this category to employ destination marketing organizations, hire staff, maybe visit Dallas or visit Corsicana, right? But they're going to use hot revenue in order to pay for the staff associated with running the destination marketing organizations' efforts and their campaigns. So it's a broader category than some of the others because we're really just doing advertising and marketing. We may use this category to do our digital marketing. Bring in influencers. I hate that word, but in my world, unfortunately, it's a reality. Bring in travel writers, right? So I have an example of this. I do a lot of work in the Big Bend region with the Tourism Council out there, right? So they'll do grants of hotel tax revenue to bring in writers of magazine articles to do an article about visiting Big Bend, right? So, they're smart. They know that they could go buy an ad with their hot money in National Geographic magazine, but they also know that if they can get a writer out to do an article about Big Bend, that's going to live in the National Geographic archives forever, right? And so the cost associated with bringing in that person to show off the area, to do familiarization tours, that's all can be covered under this category, advertising and conducting solicitations. Of the categories I'm going to talk about tonight, this is the only category with a statutory minimum expenditure threshold. What is that? Well, you collect a 7% hot rate, you must expend at least 1/7, so 1% of that 7% rate every year on advertising and promoting Tool as a destination. 1/7. Now, that's a relatively low threshold. It's about 14.28% of your annual hot budget. And the reason why I say it's a relatively low threshold is because when we start looking at all of these other potential uses of hot revenue for these event organizers that are going to apply for hot revenue, if they're buying advertising and marketing, we're going to count that, or you're going to count that, towards that 14.28% minimum expenditure threshold here, right? But there is this minimum. You got to spend at least about 14 and a change of your hotel tax revenue every year on promoting the area as a tourism destination. It's the only category with that minimum expenditure associated with it. Any questions about this category?
You're saying it's mandatory that we do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Of the money that we collected?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's right.
And you keep referring to the area, not just Tool. So
Yeah.
we are promoting whatever at the park, an event, say it's a concert,
Sure.
whatever. Maybe not putting heads in the beds, but we are promoting other people coming from Gun Barrel City, Corsicana, whatever.
Yeah.
Now that, is that a sticky wicket, or is that still, we're promoting Tool, promoting the area? It is an event.
Yeah.
The classic example is we do the air show every year, the Memorial Day weekend, the
Okay.
big air show here at Cedar Creek Lake for the whole area.
Sure.
And that's a big benefit for the whole lake area.
Yeah. Councilmember, for that event, would you think, I would think the answer is yes, do you think that there are people that are spending the night in at least a short-term rental in Tool who are likely to attend that event, even though that might not be the primary reason why they came here in the first place?
Possibly.
That's like the smartest answer you could probably give. But yeah, I think so, right? Yeah, and I think if the answer is yes or probably, even possibly or probably,
Yeah.
I think we've got enough to meet the requirements under the code. Right? Where we run into issues, or where we tend to see issues that crop up, are funding those events where there is no tie-in at all with tourism and hotel activity, right? And a prime example of this is from my home city of Austin, that was at one point using hotel tax revenue to give grants to Austin Independent School District to fund education in elementary schools at Austin ISD. Now, I have an elementary school age child in Austin, and I like that idea as a parent, but that does nothing to drive any room nights overall to the city of Austin. And furthermore, there's likely nobody who's spending a night in an area hotel who's going to be attending one of those arts exhibits at, say, name your elementary school in AISD, right? So that's really where we see an issue. But if you have a reasonable belief that your expenditure of hot revenue advertising this particular event is going to somehow impact somebody who's going to come to Tool or who is here already but may now attend that event, that's enough for the purposes of the code, right?
No, they don't stay.
Well, so we have to have hotel activity within the city. But my point being is that you may have somebody who's here for another reason, who's spending the night at a short-term rental in Tool, who's attending that, and that's enough. And I will further add to that for most of these categories, including the advertising category that we've been talking about so far, is that there's not a minimum ROI in state law associated with it, right? So arguably, if you have just some hotel activity in the city of Tool, that's enough to get you over the statutory hurdle. Now, again, it comes up to you all to decide whether or not you think that's a good use of your hotel tax revenue, but that's not my decision to make. That's a local decision to make, right? And so, if you meet that minimum threshold, you're good. I think, and I've been doing this for 20 years, I think that that's a relatively low hurdle for a city to get over in order to determine whether or not a particular expenditure qualifies for hotel tax funding, right? Because
Thank you.
there's not that minimum ROI component.
Okay.
Okay, couple more categories. Arts. You can use hotel tax revenue for the arts. Tax code has a laundry list of art forms that are acceptable for hot revenue funding. The most common things that you're going to care about are going to be things like live music, right? So musical performances, maybe other types of theatrical performances, visual arts like painting or sculpture, maybe a mural. Those are the types of things we tend to see funded with hot revenue. Live music for small and mid-sized cities being far and away the #1 arts event or arts expenditures that people apply for hotel tax funding. So here we're going beyond advertising and promotion, right? So if I come to you and say, I want to have a festival in Tool this summer, and I want to advertise and promote it, and I think I'm going to be able to drive, 20 room nights in the city. Can I get hot revenue for you for my advertising? You could say yes if you believe me, to pay for my advertising. But then I say, well, I got a little bit of an additional twist here. I want to bring a band in. I want to bring a band in from Huntsville. They got to come up. They got to spend the night. They've got transportation costs. I need to rent a stage. I need to hire the police department for off-duty officers in order to patrol it. I need to bring in porta potties. I got all these costs associated with it. It's going to be a music event. Can I get some hot revenue to pay for my costs associated with that, aside from the advertising and promotion? And the answer is going to be, I can. You decide whether or not I should get it, but I can get it because it's an arts event, right? So if it's under the arts category, and if I can demonstrate to you that tourists and hotel guests are likely to attend that festival, right? So you may have an event in mind or multiple events in mind where there's some of these costs associated with music performance or other things, and you can use hotel tax revenue under this particular category. 4th of July fireworks. 4th of July fireworks don't fit within any of these categories. You time them to music, and all of a sudden you have an artistic event, right? Now, there is a caveat associated with this category, and that caveat is a percentage. It's 15% of your annual hot revenue. That's a statutory cap for this particular category. It's the same as every other city in the state of Texas. You may not spend more than 15% of your annual hot revenue for the arts. You collect $100,000 as an example in hot revenue. That's not how much you actually collect. I'm just throwing that out there. The most you could spend in the fiscal year on this category would be $15,000. 15% of your annual hot budget. You have a pretty sizable reserve of hot revenue. If you're looking back at those reserves and you determine, you know what, we didn't spend all of our hot revenue under this category for, fiscal year 2009, 2012, whatever it is, you might be able to go back to those reserves and spend up to that cap for those years if you do some calculations. Good luck, Julius, with those calculations. I can help you if you need help.
What you're saying is, if we haven't used it in the category for the last 2 years, could it roll over?
Yes.
Okay.
So you're not required to spend your hot revenue every year, with the exception of that advertising category. Remember, I talked about 14.28%. So everything else you can keep in a bank account, and you're not required to spend that every year. You can continue to save it in an account. And if you didn't hit that 15% cap in one of those fiscal years from the reserves, you can go back and spend up to that 15% for that year.
Okay, before I get this out of my mind, so how do we measure or determine if we have heads in beds?
Great question. So it's going to depend a little bit on what type of event or activity we're talking about here, right? So if we're talking about, say, the advertising category, it's going to be a little bit fuzzier, right? Because we're going to put advertising out in the world, and hopefully we're going to bring more people to the area. We might be able to say, well, some of our advertising was effective because we could measure some of the eyeballs on that screen or that page, and we've seen an uptick in our hotel tax collections. Maybe we can attribute some of that to the advertising and promotion, but advertising and promotion is always going to be fuzzier. But other categories, it might be a little bit easier, right? So if we've got a music event and they sell tickets for the event, I would ask the event organizers to try and keep track of whether or not there are people who are buying tickets, indicate they're spending the night at an area lodging property, right? Or we may want to know also, do they have vendors or other people that were there exhibiting? Where did those people stay? Did they spend a night in Tool? We're going to want to look at that. We'll know that. If we're looking at something that's got a more of a fixed basis, so maybe we have a museum, the next category, historical restoration and preservation. The museum wants hot funding under that category. Well, museums have a visitor's log. It's really easy to ask on the visitor log whether or not you're spending a night at a lodging property within the city of Tool. And we're going to put that obligation to collect that information on the person who's applying for the money from you. They should demonstrate to you what type of impact they're having with that event, with that activity on tourism and hotel activity, right? And have that as part of your application process. And you'll want to also ask them, how did you determine this? How did you know? Did you use software to determine where these people came from? That's a possibility. Did you survey the individuals? Did you survey a subset of the individuals? Maybe I don't sell tickets for any music event. It's open to everybody. Did I send maybe a staff member around for an hour during our busiest time and pull aside 15, 20, 30 people and ask them, hey, are you spending the night in Tool? Right? Those are the types of things we're going to look for to make that determination. It's going to be fuzzy in some cases. It's going to be more art than science in many cases. Remember, our requirements for all these categories is just to show that we're having, for statutory purposes, we're having some impact on tourism and hotel activity. When you get to the ROI and making the determination as to what you should spend that money on, then you're going to want a little bit more data than what the law requires, right? Because you're trying to make a good policy decision here. But in some cases, it is going to be difficult. So it's going to depend quite a bit on the type of event we're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. All right. Historical restoration and preservation. We talked about that, or I talked about that already. You can use hot revenue for historical restoration and preservation. Preserve that historical site, that attraction, that museum. You can use hot revenue for that, provided that that historical site or attraction is visited by tourists and hotel guests, right? So you could use hot revenue for that. Does not have to be listed on a state or a national historic registry. You could have that as a local rule, but it's not required under the code. So some cities will have something like that in place. They know if you want to get a hot grant under the historical category, you need to be on the National Historic Registry. So that could be a rule you put into place. There's a cap on this category as well. It's an identical cap as with the art, so 15%. Separate cap works the same way as the other cap, though. You may not expend more than 15% of your hot revenue for historical restoration and preservation projects and activities.
Okay, that probably doesn't apply to us so much, but.
We may or may
yeah,
not,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because remember, because there's not a requirement that the historic site be listed on a state or national historic registry, you know, there is relativity here, right? So I work with the city of Lakeway all the time. They were founded right about the same time you were, 1969, also a lakefront community, right? They have a historic inn. It's not that old. I mean, it's only 10 years before I was born, but I guess I'm getting historic. But they want to use hotel tax revenue to maintain the marina, the historic marina and the historic hotel. It dates back to the 1960s. Well, that thing's open today. It's been open and renovated all along, but that qualifies for hotel tax funding, right? So you never know. And so you may want to think a little bit more about your area and what might fit within this category. Maybe you come back and say, nah, there really isn't anything, Justin. Really, there's not. That's fine. You don't have to spend this money for this category, but you can.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Just a few more categories, and I'll just take any questions. Sporting events. You can use hotel tax revenue to cover the costs associated with hosting a sporting event in Tool. And I don't care how big or small this sporting event is, except for the majority of the participants must be tourists, somebody from another city or another county. The majority of the people in that fishing tournament must be from outside the area. The majority of the people in that marathon, that bike race, that triathlon, that softball tournament, whatever the sporting event is, the majority of the people that are participating must be tourists, and there must be substantial economic activity at your lodging properties. You determine what's substantial for your community. We left that vague. I wrote that into the law many years ago. When I wrote it into the law, I left it vague because I want you all to be able to define for yourself what you consider to be substantial economic activity. The point being that even though I know where we are, I know we're in Texas, Friday night football game is not something that drives a lot of hotel room nights for most communities. This has got to be a little bit of a special event. So what can we cover under this category? Well, anything associated with hosting a sporting event aside from facility improvements. So, we have team transportation, food and beverage, security, police department activity. Those are the kinds of things that we can cover under this particular category, right? So, you have a triathlon and the sheriff's department needs to shut down on some little roads for a few hours of the day so that they can ride their bikes on the closed down road. You have the overtime costs associated with that. You can use hot revenue to pay for those overtime costs.
Including prize money?
Yes, it could be prize money as well. Like I said, team transportation, bringing in umpires. Yeah, hotel room rate buy downs. We see that in the Permian all the time. So yes, you can use hotel tax revenue for this category. So think about sporting events, and again, fishing tournaments. Go to Orange County, Texas all the time. Big bass fishing tournaments out there, right? And they got costs associated with hosting those fishing tournaments in Orange County. You use hotel tax revenue under this category to cover some of those costs. Sure. Wayfinding signage, well, one other category, and certain transportation costs, right? So that's what you have to fit this expenditure into in order for it to qualify for hot revenue expenditures under state law. If it doesn't fit within one of these categories, we need to talk about going to legislature to create something new for the city. And I'm always happy to have those conversations. Always happy to work with cities on potential legislation. But remember, the two-part test. Every expenditure must directly promote tourism in the hotel and convention industry and also fit within one of these categories that are available. What questions, other questions do y'all have?
You kept saying the word, you said area. So again, I'm just making sure like we have a concert here in Toole.
Yes.
And we think people will stay. But we're promoting tourism in Toole that come from the surrounding area.
Sure.
Even though, let's just say nobody stayed.
Nobody stayed.
Nobody stayed. Nobody stayed at one of the Airbnbs here in Toole.
Right.
If we could even determine it. We say we could determine it.
Yeah.
Could we apply, does that still fit under the category that we're promoting tourism in Toole?
Probably not. If we can determine that there was nobody who was spending the night at a lodging property in Toole,
Okay.
does it qualify for hot revenue funding? I would say probably not.
We're
no.
still back to the driving heads,
Yeah,
overall, obviously we're promoting tourism.
Yes.
But the driving the heads and beds never really goes away.
Yeah, you're right. We need to be able to show that people are spending the night in an area hotel, or let me be more, I keep saying area because, I'll be specific. Within a hotel that is subject to the City of Toole hotel tax, right? Yeah. That's what we're looking at here. And so if we have an event where we're able to tell definitively not a single person who's spending the night in a hotel, lodging property in the City of Toole attended that event, right, and we want to pay for the costs associated with hosting that event, I don't think it likely fits under the code as an allowable expense.
How do you tell if nobody?
That's where I think this becomes a difficult proposition, right? Mm-hmm. It becomes extremely difficult, Mayor, to definitively say that not a single person did. And remember what I said earlier, that doesn't have to be the reason why the person came to Toole in the first place, right? They may be here for something else entirely, but then decided, well, you know what, while I'm here, I learned about this event, this festival, and I want to go visit it. And again, not the reason I came here. Maybe I came here for a funeral, but I'm looking for something to take my mind off of my loss. I want to go to a festival. Sure, that's enough, right? That's enough. We have this nexus between tourism and hotel activity and an event that a tourist or hotel guest attended. So that's why I think for most cases, it's likely that you're going to have at least some tie-in with tourism and hotel activity, but there may be some edge cases, or maybe they're not edge cases to you. Maybe they're very clear. there's no tie-in at all with tourism hotel activity for Tool. Why are we funding this activity?
And one thing that you mentioned, we can definitely be involved with a right size fit convention center / hotel
Yes.
venue that we can participate in, public-private, you
Yes,
said?
sir.
For
Let
the
me-
land or something that we can attract that.
Let me talk about that in a little bit more depth, Councilman. So yes, so remember this is the original category. You can use hotel tax revenue to build we can call it maybe a conference center, but a convention center. We call it whatever we want. We can use hot revenue to pay for the costs associated with that construction, operation, doing a feasibility study, right, to determine what that size should be, where that location should be. We can use our existing hot revenue fund for that feasibility study, right? If we decide it is feasible, we do want to construct a facility, we can use hotel tax revenue for that purpose. We just have to remember what our statutory requirements are. The facility must be owned or managed by a local governmental entity, so probably by the city, and it must be used primarily for meetings involving tourists once it's constructed, once we decide we want to construct it. Maybe we do the feasibility study, we use hot revenue to pay for it, and feasibility study comes back and says, this is going to be real expensive and it's not going to drive a lot of room nights. Okay, that's fine too. We can use hotel tax revenue for that feasibility study, or maybe it comes back the opposite. If we right-size this, we put it in the right location, we hire the right marketing team for it, we think we can make this work economically, yeah, you can use hot revenue to pay for just about every cost associated with that facility. The hotel aspect of it, yes, you mentioned the word hotel, hotel lawyer. You can engage in something that's referred to as a qualified hotel project, but you need legislation, you need bracketing legislation to get into the program. And the way that works is we develop a convention center and a convention center hotel simultaneously or pretty close thereafter. They both have to be on city-owned land, but once it's constructed, if that convention center is within 1,000 feet of that hotel facility, you qualify for 10 years of state tax revenue, state sales tax and hotel tax revenue generated from those two facilities for a 10-year period. That's revenue that the state of Texas would ordinarily get and keep. You get it to pay for your costs associated with debt and other operations, right? So we see this with big convention center hotels. That's how the program started. So like maybe the Omni Dallas or the Omni Fort Worth, but we see it with smaller mid-sized hotels as well. Hotel Fredonia, Nacogdoches, right? Qualified hotel project owned by the city of Nacogdoches, qualifies for 10 years of state revenue entitlements in order for that project to go forward, right?
With anything associated with the convention center, surrounding cities within a 30, 40-mile radius, 15-mile radius that use our convention center, bringing people in for
Sure.
those events, we can support that.
Yes, sir.
Or you could ask them for hot funds tax too to help, is that correct?
You
If we're the-
could,
if we're a regional facility?
Yeah, you could if you wanted to do a interlocal government agreement with them and use some of their hot revenue. They pledge some of their hot revenue to help pay for the facility. You can certainly do that. You can do it in concert with the county, with other municipalities. Sure.
You've been very helpful. I have one more question. What about hiring municipal employees with hot funds?
So it's allowable provided that those individuals are performing tasks that fit within one of these categories that I talked about here this evening, right? They're under 351 101E, like ECHO. Cities may use hotel tax revenue for administrative costs associated with hot revenue expenditures, but those administrative costs must be used in a way that also is in compliance with one of the other categories. So a prime example of this would be if you hired a city employee or took an existing city employee and assigned that city employee additional duties to advertise and promote the area as a tourism destination or to manage your tourism promotional program, right? You could use hotel tax revenue using a combination of the advertising and promotion category, 351 101A3, along with 351 101E like ECHO, the administrative costs, to pay for the costs associated with the employee's salary, their benefits, anything else associated with it, to the extent that that employee is engaging in activity that fits within the two-part test. So you have an employee, maybe it's an existing employee. You go to this employee and say, look, I want you to be our destination marketing organization agent for our city, but you're going to do that part-time. You're going to do that 20 hours a week. The other 20 hours a week, you're going to work in finance, collect hot payments, collect other tax payments, do other things related to city administration that's not in one of these allowable categories. Well, up to 20 hours or 20%, or 50% of their time, right? And their expenses can come from hot revenue under that category, right? Because that's the amount of effort they're expending promoting your area as a tourism destination. So you may see that under the advertising category. In some cities, we may have like a sports marketing person, right, who's trying to bring in sporting events to the area. They may fit under that particular category. So there's some of these categories that are available for you that you may be able to utilize hotel tax revenue for city administration. But it's going to be limited to these categories and their actual time spent on these categories.
Okay, well, thank you. Is there,
Thank you.
we've any more?
good.
No, I think we
We're
kind of
good.
need to
Thank
move
you.
on, but we really appreciate you coming out. This has been very helpful.
Well, I'm glad. I'm happy to come back again. Thank you for having me here this evening. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Justin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, citizens' comments? Okay, the two that we have want to speak at the time of the agenda, so we're going to move along to staff comments. If we can have brief staff comments tonight, we'll start with Frank. Okay. Just a quick one.
Roads, 10, culverts and ditches, 9, trees, 4, city property maintained, 4, citizen work orders, 15, 7 miscellaneous, and we spent around $1,139 on material. Animal calls, 7 calls for service, 3 humane society, and 4 trap staff.
Thank you. Heath?
So for the month of February, we had 22 total permits, 4 of those being new construction, 3 pretty significant remodels.
Okay.
Other than that, it's been
Thank you. I know what they were going through these kind of quick. Alicia?
We have a date for the trash off. That's going to be April 25th. We'll start at 8 p.m. and we'll work until the dumpsters are full. The trash off will happen off of the maintenance barn on Early Drive where it is every year. So time to clean out the closets, the garage, the shed.
No, in the morning. What were the hours again, Alicia?
8 a.m.
8 a.m.
until it's full.
Still a full. Thanks. Okay, Stacy?
The court processed 235 citations. We closed 216. And teen court will be held April 6th at 6 p.m. in this building.
Thank you. Kenny?
Okay, we got approximately 48 inspections. That's re-inspections and inspections. 12 citations, and we started 2 abatements.
2 abatements.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Chief Walker?
The department had 278 calls for service, 387 traffic violations, 248 citations, 139 warnings. We also had 1 DWI, 1 theft, 1 family violence, 2 driving while license invalid, 1 possession of dangerous drugs, 1 fraud case, 1 suicidal subject, and 1 disturbance.
Thank you. Julius?
I'll start flying through it. We got a workshop tomorrow, so a lot of these things we're going to talk about tomorrow. Jenny starts on Monday. Let's
Okay.
just go with that. So our city controller, Jenny, we've hired. She starts on Monday. She'll be at the workshop tomorrow. So if you guys had a chance, introduce yourself, say hi to her. Really happy to see her come in, and that's pretty much it.
All right. Thank you,
you.
Julius.
Yes, ma'am.
Kimberly? Kimberly?
I applied for graduation from my program, and I'll graduate in January.
Awesome. That's exciting. Good job. We're very proud of your accomplishments that you've made. Okay. All right, we have a, public hearing to discuss the variance request by Bettina Miller of 1331 North Tool Drive to erect a new building in accordance with ordinance 2023-06A Highway 274 facade standards, and it's 6:49, and I'll open that public hearing at this time.
Mayor, Bettina Miller couldn't make it tonight, so I'll speak on behalf of what their application says. So, the Miller's Barbecue place, would like to erect a metal building that matches the aesthetic they have now, in accordance with, I think it's 2023-06A, not 2026. It says that all metal buildings have to have a certain facade, siding, stucco, etc. They don't want to do that. They would like to just have a metal building that matches the one they have now. So they're asking for a variance in accordance with that ordinance. That's it.
Okay, is there any discussion?
They're gonna clean the front up, they're gonna do any cleaning up in the front and.
Yeah, yes, sir.
A lot of
So-
things they have out there right now that's trashy and
Mhm.
pallets and things that are hazards.
So Officer Kenny and I have been over there twice. We've been to Amen Barbecue twice, at least twice. It's a constant conversation. Hey, make sure this fence is cleaned up. Make sure this refuse is going. We've been very upfront with them and saying like, hey, we don't want to go the ticket route. We just want to make sure you're in compliance. So it's kind of a rolling priority with them. But they know.
What, so what's the variance? Typically, they have to have some sort of stone facade on the front of the building.
Yes, ma'am.
on the
Yes, ma'am.
274?
Yeah.
They would like not to have anything, just to match the aesthetic of the current building to the one they have now.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of that. We've given them several variances in the past, haven't we? With extending their buildings in the back and things like that.
So a setback line
yeah.
on the back and the side as well.
We passed an ordinance to try and make 274 look nicer.
Correct.
And it's not going to get that way if we don't enforce it, so.
Understood.
Okay.
I mean, I agree, Julius. Like what I did in front of the steakhouse, obviously it's in county, but it was just a frame, with wood, it doesn't look like a.
Right.
And I didn't have to at the time because it wasn't even a tool, but
Right.
it did put a wood, facade to the front of it and squared it out so where it doesn't look
Like a metal building.
building
Right,
from
exactly.
the day it was before. But like I said, I did that just because of wanting to beautify 274 in the city, to not have another metal building just right there
Right.
on 274.
Right.
It's not a massive expense, but maybe what they should apply for is something from us, some sort of grant or something to
That's a
help,
possible
to
option.
help. If it's a cost factor for them, it's I think I built that wall for $15,000, so it's not that crazy expensive to do something like that.
And Mr. Cochran just redid his storage
Yes.
buildings down the street. I know he did the stone facade halfway up in the front to make it look better.
It
so.
really looks great. He took the old ones down and he put the stone
Yeah.
facades up. There's got to be something, I think, Julius, they can do. We want to work with them. I understand it's a manufacturing, but another metal building, they keep, we made, to your point, Robert, we gave a variance in the back. There's still junk everywhere. They take one section of fence down every 6 months or whatever their effort or whatever. I know we're trying to work with them,
Sure.
but there's got to be a better, I think something they can do.
Sure.
I would
Okay.
agree with that.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Okay, I'll close the public hearing at 6:53. Kimberly? Okay, agenda item number 11, approve the minutes from the February 19th, 2026 regular meeting. Is there any discussion? I think everybody's looked at it. Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the February 19th, 2026 regular meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, Kimberly passed 4-0 with Mike DeMont making the motion and Greg Figueroa, Councilman Figueroa second, and all were in favor. Okay. Agenda item number 12, approve the monthly reports for February 2026 as presented. A, executive summary. B, financial and expenditure. C, municipal court, D, police, E, maintenance, F, building, G, code enforcement, and H, animal control. So if everybody's looked that over, is there any discussion?
Council, if you didn't know, I happen to be taking some recycled trash out on my way, and they actually poured the pad for the dumpster today. So just Republic got that, we got that. Thank you, Julie, just finally getting that done. I can't wait to walk around without tripping over the rock in the driveway.
Okay. All right, do we have a motion?
I move that we accept the monthly activity reports for February 2026 as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 4-1. Kimberly, Tommy Savato made the first, Greg Figueroa made the second. Agenda item number 13, discuss and take action on a variance request by Bettina Miller of 1331 North Tool Drive to erect a new metal building in accordance with Ordinance 2023-06A, Highway 274 facade standards. Is there any other discussion?
Kimberly, can you remind me, on a variance, does somebody make a motion, there's no action, and then it fails on the floor?
Yes, that's the proper process.
Right.
Because
Okay.
what happens is if you take no action,
Mm-hmm.
then you're starting your time frame over.
Okay.
So you want to actually totally dismiss it, but of course you can't make a motion in the negative.
Right, okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion? We need someone to make. We need a motion. We need one motion.
But you can't make it in the negative. Like, I can't make a motion, say not do it.
Right.
It has to die, it has to
to
die
die.
it has to die for the lack of a second.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Do I have a motion?
And that's,
Make a motion that we discuss and take action on the variance request by Bettina Miller of 1331 North Tool Drive to erect a new metal building in accordance with Ordinance 2023-06A, Highway 74 facade standards.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second? Okay.
that's 3 times, one more time.
Do I have a second? Okay, there's no second, Kimberly, so the motion dies. Okay, that's agenda item number 14, discuss and take action to approve the 2025 racial profiling report as presented by the Chief of Police.
So, racial profiling is something that we do every year. It's not on calls that we do, it's racial profiling is just on traffic that we do. So, over the reporting period, our officers conducted traffic stops based on violations observed while on patrol and during calls of service. The data collected includes the race and gender of individuals stopped, along with enforcement actions such as citations, warnings, and arrest. This data shows that our officers are enforcing traffic laws consistently and based on behavior. Any searches conducted were based on legal justifications such as consent, probable cause, and we continue to monitor consent and probable cause. We continue to monitor these actions to ensure compliance with the law and department policy. During the reporting period, we had 0 complaints of racial profiling. All officers are current on their racial profiling education. So I can go over a few of the statistics that we got in the racial profilings if y'all want.
Is there any discussion?
I'll make, if there's no more discussion, I'll make an motion on agenda item number 14 to take action to approve the 2025 racially profiling report as presented by Chief Robert Walker for the city of Toole.
I think it's
I mean, sorry,
2026.
26. It's approved, it says 25 here.
25. It's 25.
We're a year behind, aren't we? Yeah, it was
25.
last year. It's last year. It would be for the 25 year.
Okay.
The recommended motion says 26, so is it 25 or
It
26?
says 25.
25.
Here.
Okay.
Want to restate that? You got it, Kimberly? Okay.
I second.
Okay, do we have a
I
second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 4-0. Kimberly first with Mike Demont, second Robert Stikes. Agenda item number 15, consider, discuss, and take action to enter into an agreement with Pathways Physicians Texas PLLC for the purposes of a telehealth consultations for the city of Toole as presented by Greg Figueroa. So, Greg?
I think we have Matt here tonight. If we want to let him just give a quick presentation, is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Matt's here.
Hi, everybody here tonight. I'm a representative for the telehealth company here. Mayor Bennett, Council, it's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to me talk a little bit tonight. I'm not sure.
Excuse me, state your name, please.
I'm so sorry. My name is Matt Spallas. Last name Spallas.
Thank you, Matt.
Yes, sir. I'm Matt. I'm with a company called MD Health Pathways. We are a medical services company that partner with municipalities to offer our services to cover their residents. Mr. Figueroa approached me several months ago with the idea of bringing our product TAP Telehealth to Toole, and I just wanted to take some time here tonight to maybe give you a little background on the program and then discuss how we're envisioning a partnership going forward here. So we were founded by an ER physician, Dr. Dirk Parrott, of over 20 years. He'll tell you when he started practicing medicine, 70% of what he saw in the emergency room was real emergencies, heart attacks, strokes, car accidents, things like that. Fast forward to today, that number's flipped on its head. About 70% of the stuff he sees in his ER is non-emergencies, urgent care level needs, things that do not require emergency room level of care. And he got to thinking, he asked himself, he goes, what is the reason for this, and why are people misusing the emergency room so much? And really what it boils down to is a lack of access. There's a myriad of reasons why someone may not have healthcare access, whether it's navigating the insurance system, difficulty getting an appointment with their PCP, any number of reasons. And he made it his mission to improve access across communities. Me personally, I'm an aspiring medical student, so maybe in a year or so you'll see me in a hospital and not as your telehealth representative. But for now, I met Dr. Parrott working in the ER. I was a scribe that followed him around the computer and took notes for him as he was seeing patients. And I've seen this happen a number of times, and this may sound crazy, but he would see a patient for 5 minutes, diagnose them so quickly with either a UTI, sore throat, very non-emergent, urgent care level need. And a minute or two later, the hospital administration would come in, give them an overview of their bill, and say, "Ma'am, this is going to be $900 tonight for your treatment from Dr. Parrott." And he thought that was crazy. He thought that was absolutely unfair, asinine, too expensive for the care he delivered. So I've seen him do this a number of times, and it sounds crazy, but he has given these patients his cell phone number. He goes, "Hey, if this happens again, just give me a text. I'll write you a quick prescription. I will get you out of my ER, and I will save you some money." In addition to this slew of patients that he amassed over the years, when he has friends, families, neighbors with similar illnesses, instead of rushing to the ER and urgent care, they just send him a text. And so what's a mild inconvenience for him, 5-10 minutes of his time, is a huge benefit to his friends, his families, his neighbors. And he thought, why don't I present this to communities as a whole? Why don't I give them this access of a doctor in their pocket, a doctor friend, for entire communities that may not have it, that are either struggling with access or have poor health infrastructure or are looking for a way to improve healthcare access for their residents. And so that's how we were born. A little bit about how the service works. I'll ask a quick question. Has anyone here used telehealth before? Maybe? Not quite? Yeah. But so typically how it works is it's you reach out for an appointment. They say, I'll call you from 5 to 6, then your phone rings at 7 for an appointment with the doctor, right? It's a little bit like the cable guy. We operate a little bit differently. When we partner with communities, we offer them a number or a hotline. And heaven forbid, Mayor Bennett, you get sick tomorrow morning, but you wake up with a sore throat. All you would do is send a text message to that number there. "Hi, I'm Vera. I live in city of Toole, and I woke up with a sore throat." Within a minute or two, one of our providers gets connected back with you via text. And then from there, it's like a normal, friendly conversation with that doctor friend in your family, so to speak. 20, 30 messages later, we get you a quick diagnosis. We get your prescription sent to your nearest pharmacy of your choice. We can even do work notes and school notes for people who are struggling to get notes for their kids' absences and things like that. We don't deal with insurance at all. We don't care if you have insurance or don't have insurance. There's no co-pays. If a resident were to use TAP, the only expense they would have is the prescriptions that they go ahead and pick up. So that is the program in a nutshell. Super easy to use, very quick, and what Mr. Figueroa and I are proposing is a full coverage for Tool residents for a nominal monthly fee of $4,000 a month to cover all Tool residents. These Tool residents would have unlimited access to the service. We're open 7 days a week, holidays, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m., even holiday, like I said, holidays. New Year's Day last year was our busiest day ever, so people really like the convenience of off hours of their clinic or their doctor or things like that, and they can do it all from the convenience of their home. And so tonight, we're not necessarily deciding on whether this program is the right fit for Tool. What we're offering here is a trial program. I believe it was presented to you either last council meeting or this one here, an agreement for 6 months free trial for Tool residents to try the service, get a feel for it, spread the word, and see if this is a right fit for Tool. I'm sure you guys have a million questions, and we can talk a little more openly, but I just want to give you a little spiel first.
Thank you, Matt.
I've got a couple for the benefit of the people that aren't here that might be listening. So this is mainly by text, is that correct?
That's correct. All encounters start with a text message. That's sort of the signal to the system that a patient is hopping on. We found over 90% of our encounters remain on a text. They like the convenience of it. It's easy to put your phone down, do 20 minutes of work, come back and talk back with the doctor again. But we do have the capability of doing a phone call and a video call as well. Like I said, these are uncommon because people prefer the text, but if every resident wanted to do it, we could do that for them as well. Typically, the provider's the one asking for a video call. Someone's talking about their child breathing or something like that, and they'd like to put eyes on them to see how they're breathing, things like that.
This is like a lower level of care, right?
Absolutely. Our bread and butter is minor illnesses, coughs, colds, rashes. Ladies, you know your bodies when a UTI is coming on. You know what's wrong, and you just want the treatment right away. Something to get you quickly.
There's no narcotics prescribed. I know we went over that when we talked. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I had a meeting with Mr. Kizzy and Mayor Bennett last week to discuss some of the intricacies of the program. And we'll never touch narcotic medication. Any controlled substance is not prescribed over our platform. We figure if you need that level of medication, that's something you should be seen in person for.
Okay, the next question is how do they sign up for this? Or I know the big question is nobody has to opt out of it because nobody's automatically signed up. Is that correct?
Right. Under the agreements that we've worked out or discussed here already, all Tool residents would have access to no fee to them. So there's no opting in or declining access or anything like that. There's just I have a bunch of flyers here. I'll give them out today, and you just literally text that number. Hi, I live in Tool, and
nobody has to sign up for it.
So and again, for tracking purposes, especially during this trial, that's something we can implement. We've implemented it in the past. We said text join to the number, and join again in our system triggers a response to put them into another funnel. Again, we can work out the sort of intricacies of how we're tracking and joining and things like that, but there's no app, there's no website, nothing like that. It literally just looks like a text thread
So they join by text?
What's that? I'm sorry?
They join by text?
They would join by text, yeah. They would simply send it, the same number they talked to the doctor on, they would join on.
Okay. The next question is, at the end of the trial period, how do you gauge if these people are in the city limits of Tool or not?
Yeah, that's a great question. So typically in other communities where residents have the opportunity to decline participation and not be a part of the system, the way we verify that is having a master list of residents and comparing that against them. The first time you text in, they'll ask for name, date of birth, address. None of that's shared with the city or anything like that. None of your health information is shared with the city. But that's just how we can verify against our master list of residents who are retaining enrollment. We discussed some possibilities last week about how that may work, and we understand that there's not necessarily like a utility billing list or anything like that in town. I don't want to speak for Kimberly here, but she mentioned briefly there was a census list from the county, things like that. I'm willing to work with you guys on a way that would work best.
Okay, in the contract that's presented to us, you have the ETJ, and I think Julius was saying that we couldn't include the ETJ in this. Is that?
So Matt and I talked after I ran this by Blake, and what our city attorney said was you had to remove the ETJ part of it.
Mhm.
But other than that, Matt was pretty agreeable to that.
Yeah, that's no problem for us. That was, that's more patients for us that we'd be covering, so we're more, no problem for us to
We
remove
could
the
do, we
ETJ.
can do it, or we
So
can't.
we can do,
cannot.
we cannot do the
include
ETJ.
Per our
Per-
discussion last
okay.
week, that's what it sounds like.
Okay,
No.
so I just want a clarification. You talk about residents, okay? Taxpayers, people pay property taxes, rent, if you residents that live in the city of Toole. That's where, not in the county, so Pete across the street, he doesn't apply.
No.
But how do you police that Pete calls in, across the street from there, the body shop owner, and said, well, I live in Toole. We're going to have to provide you with a master list, I take it. You just said a list.
Something, so yeah, and
You're going to have some kind of documentation that says there's 2,400 full-time residents of City of Toole, plus, in
Yes,
City
sir.
of Toole.
Yes, sir. And
Okay.
it doesn't even have to be named. We could verify based on address, things like that as well.
Okay.
For the sake of privacy or resident information, things like that.
So what we discussed before with Matt last week, was we would take a master address list, and build off of that. Right. And so you'd cross-verify, as Matt was saying, when you call in, dial in, Vera Bennett, blah, 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 your address. I'm not going to say it, but blah, 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 your address, right? They would cross-verify that, with their master list, and you'd go right in. Because that would be incredibly difficult for Matt to know, or any of his physicians to know, who lives in Toole, who doesn't. So we'd have to provide that to him, cross-verify that, and then we'll move forward.
Julie, something else too that I had asked about, I don't know if it's possible based on the ETJ ruling.
Sure.
But if it was a Toole business, that if you worked in Toole, you
So-
could get coverage.
So what Matt was
They
saying
said they agreed to do that too.
Yeah, so what Matt was saying, that you have up to 10 people?
Yeah, so typically, our normal model is that a resident or a household would pay the fee instead of the city covering it. And so we consider a household up to 10 individuals. So whether that's mom, grandma, a couple kids, in the household, up to be 10 individuals. Same applies to commercial accounts, water accounts as well. 10 employees could be covered by the thing.
How do we justify spending taxpayer money on non-tax paying residents? I mean, have you ran that by the city attorney, Julius? And can we do that for businesses?
We can, yeah. You read the entire
Well,
agreement, so
businesses
it's
do
on
pay
there.
taxes.
Okay. Yeah, I know they do.
The
yeah.
business will pay taxes in
Okay,
in terms
all
of
right,
property
that's fine.
taxes.
Yeah, I
Yes,
was just
ma'am.
curious about that.
And maybe it's not a huge needle mover for businesses, but it could be a good incentive to retain employees that can't, you can't offer health insurance normally. This is a great alternative for them to give them something, a starting point.
Okay.
And I thought it was an encouragement for people that would open a business or do something in Toole, because most people can't afford to give their employees any kind of health benefits at all.
Right.
At least this would be something that they would have.
And from the conversation I had with Matt, it does serve kind of two sides of the spectrum: those that have the health care and don't want to drive the 20 minutes to Gun Barrel to go see a doctor for 5, or the people who don't have any health care and this is their first contact with a healthcare professional. So you kind of have two different audiences that Matt was talking about engaging. Now the tertiary level is the tertiary level, but I guess in the initial contact you have, it's a pretty simple process from texting to getting a FaceTime call. Do you mind addressing how quickly you can get somebody on, I don't say FaceTime, that's an iPhone, but on like video call to talk with a healthcare professional?
That's a great question. Mornings are our busiest time, so a resident can, they'll get a response immediately from a provider, but they can expect maybe 5-10 minutes to get on a actual video call.
Okay.
Right now, I have numbers. If y'all wanted to try it, I bet you could get on in under 5 minutes with a video call.
Cool.
In the evening, it's a little chiller.
Matt, I've had this conversation with Julius and Kimberly, and I like the idea, and it is real simple. I think the key for us will be launching it and doing it, kicking it off properly. I saw where you had some things to help us with that, because I really, that's the thing that I'm going back, is that this is great, just because we agreed to it today. We got to have some time to set this up, get you the list. You got a flyer. We have a contact with 10 of the presidents of the POAs. We can email out to them to get to resident. There's ways to do it, but I think Julius and Council and Mayor, we really got to step back and just implement this thing correctly.
I think we do social,
Yeah.
like social media, and
Yeah,
obviously we can
social
reach
media,
a lot
you
of
got
people.
flyers. I mean, we may make a decision. Do you do a mailer? I don't know. That's a cost. I mean, these are things to be discussed.
This is something we've discussed internally. We're happy to do a mailer at our cost to residents, things like that. So
There you go.
if that's of any ease to y'all, happy to do something like that.
And yeah, I'd
I
like to
figured that
encourage,
was-
like, if we do, Mike, that
Yeah.
everybody try to join. The more people we have join, we have 6 months free.
Yeah.
So I encourage everybody to try to use this service at least once, or, it's maybe not flu season, but
Sure.
try to use the service. So what we're going to do over the 6 months is kind of take a litmus test on, do we all think, how many people come and say they used it, it was helpful, it was beneficial, it was something, I'm 65, I can't get to a doctor, I don't have transportation, I don't have health insurance, I at least spoke to a doctor, got a prescription, it helped me, sometimes I want to go to the doctor, but to get a doctor's appointment these days might take weeks. I mean, just to see your
I
own
just
doctor.
have one
But
quick question.
I would say we start the clock. I mean, this is the whole deal is we wouldn't start the clock, I think, until we got it all launched. That's again, that's part of my concern. So say now it's March 20th, so it may be May 1st. Is that reasonable? And we want to do, I know we have a sense of urgency, but maybe then the clock starts on the kickoff date.
The way it's written right now is it would start tomorrow.
Okay.
The free trial would start tomorrow. I mean, we're
Well,
happy
my point though is it starts tomorrow. We wasted a month because nobody knows about it. That's my issue.
Yeah.
Can we move to start? Can we start the 6-month clock
So-
once we got it ready to launch? If people know about
So,
it.
Mike, so initially it was a 90-day trial, and so then, knowing we're coming into a budget year, Mayor and I talked about this, where if we did the 3-month trial now, then we'd have months that if we decided to go forward, we'd have a few months we'd have to pay for it outside of a new budget or approving that in the new budget. So they graciously agreed to do 6 months, which gets us right up to our budget year, our budget meetings, and in August, we can decide, are we going to appropriate this in our budget? And if we do, just because we say, okay, we're going to set the 48 aside and do this in the budget for October, where the payments would start October 1st, we still have the option to cancel and say, we're not going to move forward by September 17th, which is that council meeting in September. So we would still, and then we'd have to put the money back in the budget if we decided for some reason didn't like the results, we didn't get enough participation. But our idea of the 6-month runway is just to build participation. And if we don't, and we don't see the need, then that's it.
No, I hear what you're
Okay,
saying. I
hang
just
on.
have
Yeah,
one
go ahead.
thing. I don't mind starting tomorrow, but Julius, can you get him the information he needs as far as who lives in Tool by tomorrow?
No.
Okay.
But again, with the conversation that me, Matt, and Kimberly had, it's going to take a while to feel out of what he may need, the voter list or the appraisal roll. Like yeah, you can get that. It's pretty simple to get and shoot it over to him. But again, he may look at this list and say, I don't know what any of this looks like or any of this means.
But the
So-
idea
so
of the trial, though, Julius, is it's free. So I figured if we start April 1st, right? Between now and then, we start letting people know this is coming. But if the whole month of April, all we do is if someone signs up within 5 minutes, they can call the doctor immediately. So
Correct.
there might be 50 people that sign up in April, 100 people, then another 200, but as it grows, we have 6 months free. So this is our time, and that was another reason I didn't want to start paying for it and then spend that money while we're trying to sign people up. So we have this is something they have never done, right?
Yeah.
And offered a city a free trial, and because of all of these reasons and ramping up and getting people educated, they've graciously given us this 6-month time frame. So I don't know that there's necessarily a hard start date. It's just we're starting. If you can sign up now, tomorrow, if you want to go ahead and sign up, say you're from Tool and text them, and you'll have coverage.
It would be no hard sell to tell my boss that we're going to give them one less free month, right? So if you guys wanted to do it, would be no problem for us. But again, I agree with Mr. Figueroa here. We have no problem, doing a ramp up month. So
Do
to
you
speak.
want us to sign it before we use it, or just wait till we need you? Do we sign up for it, or do you want me to wait until I have a sinus infection, I need my amoxicillin?
Most residents do use it that way, but we find it very helpful you can send a text, just the join text, and then it's saved in your contact and all that stuff.
Okay,
It doesn't have to
okay.
require a medical encounter after the fact. You could just join that way.
I got you.
Okay, let me ask Julius a question. What do you think the administrative cost is for y'all to help implement this plan during the 6-month period? Have you put a pencil to that?
4 employees will be directly affected. So me, Kimberly, Elise, and our city controller. Time with Matt, that's time associated. If we decided to do a mailer as a city, last time we did a mailer was about $3,000. But again, Matt has already offered that they'll do the mailer themselves. So you're just looking at really time. I really can't think of any administrative costs that would come out of pocket for us besides just time.
Okay.
So
Yeah, we can use we can use your literature and everything, and we just customize it for Tool.
Totally.
You got the basic.
Yep.
That would
And-
save us money.
So like I said, it's really just time, Ms. Vera, to be honest with you.
Okay, all right. Is there any other discussion? I have one more question. Does it have to be a 2-year contract? Can we do a 1 year?
I believe we changed it back to, I see. So it's written as a 2-year with a 1-year evaluation period. So it has to be ratified again. I'm not sure that that's the right term, but it has to be voted in again, so to speak, after that first year. So it's essentially 2 1-year contracts, but just the way it's written is 2.
And,
So-
Matt and I discussed today, and whenever I last saw you, it's best if we take this agreement and use it for 6 months. Just leave it like it is for 6 months, and then in August, I think I told Matt August. August would probably be the first nexus point of how is this going, then bring back the next agreement before you to start another one in October. To me, just my personal opinion, I told Matt that this wouldn't suffice for a contractual agreement through after August, or after October, excuse me.
Then I think we should have a beginning and end date on that contract, and
On
then
this one or the next one?
this one. I mean,
This one has an end date of September 20th.
okay, all right, and then we enter into another 2-year contract, or we negotiate that for a year.
And that's why I said come back in August. We'll lay out everything we've got, and then come back in September.
It has
meeting
to
and
be
renegotiate.
approved in the city budget every year to go forward. If the next council doesn't approve the next year and the next year's budget,
Goes away.
it just goes away.
Well, it doesn't go away because there's a
It goes away.
How long is the period in there?
That's what I'm saying. So this one is just for 6 months.
I know, I get that, but the next one
The next one, that's what we're talking about. We'll
for a year rather than 2 years. Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
That's okay.
So we would have to have a year contract in order to renew it every year for the new.
Well, it's a year
council.
contract. It could be a 2-year, but the out is every budget season. If it's not approved, it's like anything. If we don't approve, every city can only obligate itself for 1 year. So that's what I told them. I said, you're going to be subject to cancellation every budget year because if this council doesn't approve it in the budget, it's gone. And they've accepted that term in the contract where if the city council
Okay.
doesn't approve it and appropriate the funds, it's over.
Yeah, I get that, but there was some like it was a 2-year contract. So
Well, if we go further, if we do approve it, then go to the second year, then I think we did 90, is it 90 days? What'd you all?
90 days.
90
90
days.
days.
So we'd have to give 90 days notice, and basically we'd pay for 90 days. And that would be our only risk, I guess, to say if it is one, that we'd have to continue for 90 more days and then it would be over.
right,
Correct.
okay, all right, that's what I want to see.
But for clarity of tonight, this agreement's for the 6 month starting
Correct.
tomorrow, ending September 20th, which is actually on a Sunday, but it's right after that council meeting.
Okay, but the contract that's in the packet needs some work on it before it can be signed.
Yeah, no, we'll end it. Yeah,
Okay, all
that's
right,
fine.
got that. Okay,
Right.
all right. I don't have anything else. Does anybody else?
You mean to make you?
Do we have a motion?
I would ask in your motion, whoever makes it, to say subject to amendments, so we
Okay.
can actually
Absolutely.
Few
fine-tune it a
amendments,
little bit
okay.
more. Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we take action to enter in an agreement with Pathways Physicians Texas PLLC for the purpose of a telehealth consultation for the city of Tool as presented by Greg Figueroa,
Matt.
subject to the amendments for a few items that we discussed.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Kimberly, 4-0. Greg Figueroa the first, Mike DeMott the second. Thank you, Matthew,
Thank
for
you, Matt,
coming.
for- Thank you.
If you'll leave those brochures
doubt.
on the back there, we'll
Yeah.
get them.
Same with my business card. It's got my cell on it. If y'all have any questions, I'm available. I'm around.
Okay,
Hey,
thank you
Matt.
for coming.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Matt.
coming out.
Thank you, Matt.
Item agenda number 16, discuss, review, and take action for bank depository service for the city of Tool as presented by the city administrator. Julius?
Yes, ma'am. So I was reviewing the bids for the bank depository services. So Blake came by about 2 weeks ago, maybe last week, probably 2 weeks ago. Sorry, the days run together. To talk about these bids again. So The crux problem that we had last time was that they didn't fill out the conflict of interest questionnaire. However, in our bid documents, in section 6E, it says the city reserves the right to reject any non-material irregularities. So a non-material irregularity, in our city attorney's opinion, is a document or a section of the bids that is not material in nature, like price, deadlines, etc., to accept the bids. So tonight, if you guys deem so, which is my opinion to deem so we can get this process over with, is to deem the conflict of interest questionnaire a non-material irregularity, to reject that part of it and to accept the bids on face value. So that's the first thing. The second thing would be choosing between Prosperity Bank and Simmons Bank. Thanks, KP. And Simmons Bank. In my opinion, I think we should go with Prosperity Bank on a couple of things. Number one, communication. I think Prosperity Bank has shown through the years a knack for really good communication, upfront communication, and interest in our community. Number two, there's something called account analysis charges, which I think everybody probably knows on a personal basis. Those are not charged. Those will not be charged across any of our accounts, which right now they are charged across most of our interest-bearing accounts. So Prosperity in their bid has said that they will not do that. Thirdly, I would say that I would like to use Prosperity Bank because of the level of, how do I say, courtesy. I'll go with that. I'll go with courtesy. So it's my recommendation we go with Prosperity Bank. It would take a while to get it going. It's going to take a minute to transfer all the money over. But 100% to 102% collateral, they have that. FDIC insured on all the bank accounts, they have that. Interest-bearing accounts, they have that. So I believe it's best to go with Prosperity Bank at this time. We have to have an agreement for no less than or no more than 5 years. So I'm thinking of a 3-year term. With Simmons, we don't have anything, so we're not in compliance. But if we have a 3-year term with Prosperity Bank, give them all the leeway to manage our finances, I think we'll be just fine. So.
Is there any discussion? I think you outlined it
I
pretty
think
good.
they're great. I think they're a great local bank. Not just local, but they're a great bank.
And they've done work with over 500 entities. I don't know if it's across the state or across America, but they have done work with plenty of entities. So
They're all over the place.
yeah.
They really are.
So like I said, just diving deeper into it, having conversations. I think Prosperity Bank is better for Tool at this time. Thank
Is
you.
the motion to accept them tonight? Or is it?
Does that mean we're changing our banking over, or we're changing from Simon to Prosperity?
Yes.
Changing
And
everything
it's
over? Okay.
good timing because we have obviously our controller starting Monday, so
Okay.
it's good
Just wanted-
timing.
Just want a clarification.
Great timing. Yep. Mr. Gray, you're making a motion. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
There's a motion to accept Prosperity, though?
Correct. You make the motion to award the bank depository services bid to Prosperity Bank.
Okay. I make a motion that we award the depository services for the city of Tool to Prosperity Bank as presented by the city administrator.
Do we have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 4-0. Kimberly, Greg Figueroa with the first, and Robert Stocks with the second. Okay, thank y'all for that. Agenda item number 17, consider, discuss, and take action to repeal Section 21 of Ordinance 2024-10, Parks and Recreation as presented by Tommy Salvato. And we have Lamont Cheney that wants to speak on this. So Lamont, if you'll take the microphone at this time.
Lamont Cheney, 1112 Holiday Drive, Tool, Texas. As a private citizen, I'm concerned that repealing this requirement would shift liability to the city for any accidents, incidents, or injuries occurring during any events. In my view, a vote to repeal these protections is not a sound business decision, as it exposed the city to significant legal fees and potential financial instability. It is worth noting that the neighboring communities, including Gun Barrel, Maybank, and Athens, all require liability insurance from all special event applicants, regardless of whether they are nonprofit organizations or private organizations. These policies are in place for specific reasons to protect those municipalities from liabilities associated with such gatherings. I urge you to prioritize the long-term financial safety of our community and maintain the current insurance requirements. It shows that you're replacing 21 with 7, saying it's a duplicate, but in 7 it doesn't give any requirements for insurance. So if you're doing away with all insurance requirements, then that's my reason for speaking today. Thank you.
Thank you, Lamont. Okay, Michael Fladmark, you had signed up also to speak on agenda item number 17.
Michael Fladmark, 600 Winding Shore Drive, Tool City. In support of Lamont, the follow-up is that I've been involved with a number of special events in the city of Dallas over the years for nonprofits and for individual companies, and we've always been involved with having to carry special insurance, special event insurance, and it's always been a requirement of the cities. And it protects the cities and it protects the event holders. So I didn't understand really why you wanted to remove something was actually defining a protection for the city and for everyone involved that would be participating in the event. And so in your discussion, I'd like you to fully define what you mean by deemed appropriate, because that just is ambiguous language. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to comment on this. I agree that there might be some ambiguity on this, but my suggestion would be under item number 7 on the special events permits that we delete the first paragraph of number 7 and leave item number 21 in there, and that is making the proof of insurance, special event insurance in some cases, as deemed appropriate by the city. When deemed appropriate, a certificate of insurance shall be submitted to the city listing the city of Tool as additional insured. I don't have know of any instance, if it's a big enough event to require a special use permit, I don't see any reason why we would not require them to have a certificate of liability insurance presented to the city of Tool that lists the city of Tool as additional insurance. If you don't, then I think that the organizer of that event is putting themselves at risk personally. If they don't have D&O insurance, I think they're putting themselves at risk personally, and they're taking on the liability themselves. If not, it shifts to the city. So I think that if there's an accident out there, whether it's a nonprofit, a church, I don't care who it is, if it's big enough to come to the city and have a special use permit, and that you seek that application for special use, then it's big enough that you should have a liability policy. Now, you can get a one-day special event just for that one event policy that's quite reasonable, or you can have a general liability policy like the Aid at Tool Inc. has that covers the city of it's just a blanket policy that covers the city of Tool as an additional insured year for every event out there, which is much cheaper for them to do it that way than it would be to just do a one-time permit. But to have somebody that has an event that's significant enough to get a special use permit not have any insurance, I think that we should take out that first paragraph of 7K, leave in 21, and if they think they shouldn't have one, they can come before the council and let the council make a variance rather than city staff making the determination if somebody should have insurance or not. Yes.
I just feel that insurance should be required by everyone. There should be no exemptions. Just makes it easier, cleaner, and less political.
Right. Okay, Tommy, it's your presentation, so.
Thank you. I just happened to stumble on these conflicting ordinances, and I approached Julius about it. I said, I don't know if these need to be combined or what, but what I did like about 9406 was it gives the city some flexibility. And I looked into this. Dallas, Fort Worth, and even Irving, they've got levels of events, and the special event is the highest level event, and I agree with everybody here. anything of that magnitude, and it's whatever criteria we set as a city should be insured. But they've got public events, private events, just events, and special events. So it's kind of a layered level of risk. And what happens if somebody comes in and applies for something in these cities, say it's a public event, the cities will do a risk assessment on it and decide whether or not what level of risk there is that the city's willing to take. We do have coverage over there. I've talked to Julius about this, and that's another thing too. What would we be covered by if we had a private event there, or a small public event? They're not selling anything. Something's going on over there. You got maybe 50 or 100 people. There's no real physical activities that anybody's going to get hurt on. I mean, an Easter egg thing is a perfect example of it, probably. But I like the thought that the city has the ability to make an assessment on what's happening over there and then determine a risk. Most of them probably would require insurance, and I believe that. But I like the fact that the city would have an option to take a look at them independently and let the council make a judgment on what they wanted to do, unless it was a clear-cut event. Like I said, a large special event, concert, whatever. The vendor markets are another example. I think those are kind of a no-brainer. They need coverage on that. So I like the variability in 9406. The 9420 conflicts with it. So whatever we do, we just need to try to get those two conflicts out of there. That was my sole purpose.
I agree with you on getting the conflicts out, but I think we should take that first paragraph out of even. I think Mr. Fladmark made a great point as how is it going to be deemed as appropriate and who's going to do that. I mean, we're asking city staff to determine if there's going to be a liability issue out there or not.
No, the council makes that determination. We need to figure out a risk assessment. That might be something there. I don't know if anybody's got any experience at that, but obviously the size, the magnitude of it. Are we closing off roads? Is it like a bike race or something where people are out on the streets, things like that? So,
are you saying every special event would come before the council and they would deem if that's appropriate or not to have insurance?
I think a special event, like I said, vendors markets, concerts and stuff, that to me, that's very clear cut. Something that's rather innocuous, like wedding event at the veranda, an Easter egg hunt for kids, things like that. I don't think the magnitude of risks is there that that we would need anything beyond what we might have as a city. That's my personal thought. But again, my biggest driver here was to eliminate these conflicts. So.
Well, then if that's the case, then if we take the first paragraph out of number 7K, leave the other in, and if they think that it's an event that doesn't need the insurance, and if you're saying they have to come before council, they can come before council for a variance. And otherwise, everybody has to have insurance, and if they don't, then I think that determination has got to be made by the council if somebody doesn't have insurance. I think it should be a council decision and not left up to any city staff member to determine, to say whether that is a risk or not enough for when you get 100, 200 people together, if it's an Easter egg hunt or if it's a concert or anything, there is a risk there. There is an inherent risk there when you get that many people together that something could happen.
But don't we have insurance to cover that?
Why should that be on the city?
Because it's our public park. It's our park. The city has a public park.
We're going to get
for
sued
public
anyway.
purpose.
Do what?
So we'll be in the lawsuit anyway, regardless.
Well, I think it's an extra layer of protection. I mean, you always would have events to have their own insurance out there and make the city a tool additional insured, because then that's going to make our rates go up and anything else. If we have an accident out there, that is not good fiscal responsibility to say the city takes on that risk and not the event promoter.
So
because if that event promoter out there is careless, then whether it's our city park or not, then that comes back on us.
How much is this? Do we know? How much is a special, like, to get an insurance?
One time,
if you're gonna have a wedding for 100 people,
$400 to $500.
$400 to $500.
Yeah, I mean, only because I've taken one out before. But when we did a special event in Hazel, we were just going to do it one time. We took it out.
And that's for $1 million, $2 million.
Yeah, $1 million, $2 million, and it's $300 to $400, $500. It's not that much. you know.
So the Malakoff band, which go for practice in our park, they need to have they have extra insurance.
I think you're talking about a special event where you're doing like a concert or an Easter egg hunt where you're inviting a lot of the public. If they're going to come over there and practice, I don't think that. They have their own insurance. I mean, you know, they definitely have their insurance. So that wouldn't be a risk to the city. But if you have, you know, somebody else coming out here to our city, then and they're having a group of people out there. I'm not talking about somebody renting the amphitheater because that does not require a special use permit. But if it's big enough to come in and ask for a special use permit, then they should have insurance unless they come and convince the council otherwise. But I don't think it's a staff decision to put that on staff to assess risk and decide who's going to have liability insurance out there or not.
Quick question, did we increase, or what did we do differently with our insurance policy? Are we is this TML or is this a different? So under TML, we opened a park, we never had one before in the last, so did we do something different with them? Did we inform them that we have a park now? What happened?
Yes.
Our
Are
insurance
we
went
paying
up.
more?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, our insurance went up because I remember Jewish, we
Our
talked about,
liabilities went
our
up.
liability went up.
'Cause
But
of-
you're right,
do we know
yes.
how-
I don't remember the
do we know
number.
how-
Off the top of my head, I couldn't
I
tell
don't
you,
need,
but it did go up.
we had to increase our insurance for our liability because of the park. I got
Right,
the
so
number.
like-
And I'll add another layer to that. When we were building the park out there, we had a builder's risk policy out there. So we had, even the own city had an extra layer of protection in there. So we had a builder's risk policy while we were building that in case anything happened out there. So, so I definitely think that it's not anything that, I mean, it should come before the council, and it should be mandatory. And then if it's just like any other ordinance, if they don't want to comply with it, they come before the city council and ask for a variance.
Well, so what example, what's the reason for the change now? As far as what prompted this, Councilman?
There was an email going around that I think that the Parrot Head clubs, and Tommy had talked to somebody at the Parrot Head clubs about waiving the insurance requirement for the Parrot Head club. But I'm finding it hard to believe that the Parrot Head club, you know, is doing an events like the poker run or something like that without a general liability policy. And if they're not, then I mean, they should be.
They do insure the poker run,
They do,
as far as I know.
yeah, they do a liability for that event.
Yeah.
So what were they doing with that event I know we lost an event. Was that the Easter egg hunt they wanted to do? What was that? What is it they wanted?
That's kind of what
That's
brought
what
this
started
up.
this whole
and-
thing.
Yeah.
And I'm a Parrot Head Club member, and I support them 100%. And we've even reached out to them and said, come do it. You can they've even said, you know, you can partner with the 501c3. We want to work with you. We want to do that. I'm not trying to disc any particular organization. I'm just saying, for the protection of the city, we should require insurance to everybody that has a big enough event to require a special use permit. And if not, then they should come before the city council and get a variance. So,
Julius, how do you feel about putting some levels in there, like event, special event, like I was mentioning, I found in Dallas and Fort Worth?
So I've seen that done in one other city. I don't know where it was, so it might have been one of yours you're talking about. I think there's an idea. I think there's a way to combine what you guys are saying together. I think there's a way to level out if you need insurance based on a certain things. So if somebody rents the amphitheater, we don't ask for insurance.
No.
Somebody rents, well, we haven't had it come up yet, but someone wants to rent the pickleball court, we're not going to ask for insurance for that either. But the type of special event you're going to have, and this is a discussion I've had with Mr. David. Mr. David asked me, might have been this week, you were like, hey, if we have a vendor's market, do we have to fill out the special event permit application? And I said to him, no, because you're not using the park in its entirety, or your event's not that involved. So I think that goes to Mr. Tommy's point about if there's levels of requiring insurance. If you have 0 to 25 people, is no point. 0 to 50 people, I get that. 100 people, 200 people, past that, yeah, I would say you definitely need insurance for those things. However, to Ms. Vera's point, if an organization wants to come in and they have 75, but they want to use 3 or 4 amenities, yeah, the organization may be small in nature, if it's like a church or something like that. So they may have to come to the council and say, hey, council, we want to have this event, but your staff is telling me that we can't have that, we need to have insurance.
well, I think the difference is, like I said, if somebody's renting to what Mike said, it's our city park. If somebody's renting the amphitheater, I mean, they're renting the amphitheater for a birthday party, or they want to come out and they want to use the pickleball courts or a volleyball deal out there. That is what our city park's for. This is special events. And special events is a big event that's going to draw people in there, you know, and those kind of events are the kind that needs this insurance.
But that's what I'm saying. Although it sounds like it may be a disagreement, you guys' ideas are kind of together. If you use a tertiary system of saying, here's the levels of expected attendance, just use expected attendance for example. Here's the level of expected attendance you need to have for insurance purposes. Yeah, you could have that one fly-by-night guy who says we're going to have 50 people, 150 show up, but we know never to use them again. We're never allowed to have a special event permit per our ordinance. However, if you're saying that for everybody who needs to have a special event permit, they may only have 25 people out there, and they're only using the amphitheater, but they just want to seal it off so nobody else uses the park that day because they want to be intimate in nature. Then maybe you don't need the insurance thing because it's not that involved.
That doesn't fall under special use, that permit. That falls under renting the amphitheater.
But that's what I'm saying. If
yeah,
somebody,
and
if somebody filled it out just because
yes.
they want to have it in private or intimate in nature, you're going to make somebody who has a part of 25 people have an insurance policy that costs more than even the overhead.
I'm not saying that. I think you're missing the point. If they come out there and they want to rent the amphitheater, there's a different form for that.
You're exactly right.
That is not a
Exactly right.
special use. If they have to invoke a special use permit, then and if you're requiring a special use permit, they should have insurance. If you're not requiring, that's where the level comes in at. If you're not having a special use permit, then they shouldn't have to have, then we rely on the city's insurance.
Mr. Tommy, in the levels you saw out of those cities, were they levels of coverage or the levels of attendance? What were the levels? Attendance. So, Ms. Vera, going back to the point, if you have a person, and just walk me through this example. If you have a group out there, I'll say there's 20 people in here, and we want to use the park because we want to have an all-day event where we do pickleball, wedding, etc. And we want the park to be intimate in nature. That goes back to the level of Mr. Tommy was saying. If we only have expected attendance of 25 people, they may not need insurance for 25 people. That's the point he's making. That's what I'm saying, going back to that level policy. If they go about the level, they don't like the answer we give them, then sure, they can come before you guys.
I don't think that's a special.
But they could apply. But I'm saying they could apply for one because they want to. We can't deny an application because we're like, you don't need the amphitheater. Don't use it because they may want to say, we want to have the whole park just because.
If they apply for a special event, if it's to the criteria that they have to apply for a special event, it should have a
insurance.
An insurance. They should have it.
Well, don't the level of the event matter? Like an Easter egg hunt versus a concert. I want to have a special concert.
Sure.
So I apply for a special permit.
You would apply
The
for
vendor
one in
market's
both-
not a
both.
special event. We plan that every second.
Yeah.
Saturday. That doesn't qualify.
Won't
That's not a
qualify.
special event.
Mm-mm.
So we go back to the Easter egg hunt or the First Baptist Church wants to have the sunrise service.
Okay.
Or for Easter at the park.
Okay.
We're gonna let them do that or have to have a permit? They're gonna have 100 people come and have sunrise
Need a permit.
service. So we're gonna have a permit
Need
for
a
that
permit.
and have to have insurance?
Yes, sir.
Yes, they have.
Yes, sir.
Those
Yes, sir.
most churches and most of these people that are doing these special events have coverage. I mean, and so it's not anything extra that these people are going to have to do. As far as the vendor market, if they're putting on a vendor market out there, I think they need a special use permit.
That's different. There's something, I'm talking about our vendor market, not a special event. It's scheduled.
Yeah,
They do
but-
that's a different deal.
But that's scheduled, but the 501c3 has insurance, and I don't think we would let them do that vendor market out there unless they had insurance. And we don't. That's required. So if somebody else coming in wanted to do the vendor market, you would absolutely have them have insurance also.
But that goes back to the schedule Mr. Tommy's talking about. That's what I'm saying that I was trying to get you to understand. Like the level that you guys could create to say this is what is required for insurance purposes would marry the two ideas you guys have together. Ms. Vera, you're fine of saying everybody has to have insurance, but with that being said, it'll be subjective of we have a vendor's market that needs insurance, an Easter egg hunt that's not involved doesn't need insurance. You're going to get into that all the time.
I think all of those things need insurance, though.
But that's where you guys disagree.
If somebody wanted 50 people to meet them in the park to play kickball.
There's no way I would say.
No,
come
but I'm
get
saying
insurance.
it's a public place. They go out there and have a kickball tournament.
If they say nothing
can
to
we
us,
stop
you
them?
can't
Can we kick
walk.
them out?
No,
You can't stop them.
That's what I'm
You
saying.
can't.
But it's a public. They're playing kickball. They're playing flag tackle football. 20 kids go play tackle football in the park. Can we stop them and require
No.
insurance? So I think it all falls back to how good is our insurance, and do we have an umbrella for the park, or do we have a special use? Do we have, because most people, if you use their insurance, like you'd hold them as an additional insured, or a certificate. So maybe it's an additional insured certificate, might cost $50 from our insurer. I don't know how it works with TML.
Sure.
But if we have the appropriate insurance, for our park, because we're going to get sued anyway. Doesn't
it's gonna
matter.
happen.
And it's, do we have enough coverage? That's the question, because at some point, and even an Easter egg hunt, I mean, I disagree. There's liability if there's one person. There's two people playing pickleball, liability. We're going to get sued. If a kid eats the plastic of the Easter egg and chokes to death, we're going to get sued. So bottom line, it's not about how good the insurance is of whoever wants to use the park. It's how good is our insurance.
Well, no, I think I respectfully disagree with you. I think the first line of coverage is going to be on theirs, and if the liability costs exceed their policy, then it would reach ours. So the less it reaches our policy, the better. So in other words, it would invoke their policy first and then ours.
I agree, but I mean the level of that is if it's $300 or $500 for every time an additional charge for someone to use our park. That's the level of barrier. Will they pick another park, or is everyone else charging the same? I don't know. I don't know if Michael, Vera, you want to call in? Michael, I don't know.
Michael Fladmark. So you buy this insurance. It's an annual policy, cost about $500 to $600, and all you do is when you go to different events that require the insurance, you just add that city as a rider to that insurance policy for that particular event. Doesn't cost you any more or anything like that. So usually, people that do these kind of special events, they carry this insurance. So all they're going to do is add Tool as the rider on their insurance policy. It's a one-time cost to them, and so it's not really a big deal. But I agree. You're both right. If someone trips during the Easter egg hunt, and they might want to sue the city for medical expenses and stuff like that, right? Everything's a risk when you're dealing with
We're
people.
also going to determine liability of, was it because
Right.
the sidewalk was crooked, or was it because of the Easter egg hunt that people do?
Yeah,
So there's all kinds of.
Yeah, I know, but risk. We're not in the business of risk, right? But we have to be aware of it and plan for it. And so, I think modifying the language a little bit. I think we're a little too small to do a bunch of different levels, but it's something to talk about. I mean, we're having a workshop tomorrow, so that's something to talk about.
I think it's a good idea to figure out the levels.
Yeah,
in
and
the
that's
workshop.
what I'm saying. Like the levels thing
Thank you.
is kind of a marriage between two ideas. Although Ms. Vera, you may not see it like that. To say that everybody, no matter what, because you slap a name on it, needs insurance.
I didn't say everybody. I said if it rises to the level that they have to have a special event permit. If they're planning it, 30 days out, and they're inviting people from the community,
Yeah.
then they need to have a special.
Sure.
Yeah,
But to go back to
Yeah.
what Mr. Greg was saying, if 50 people get off a bus and show up, and they just play all over the park,
well, they don't have a special use permit then.
see, but you can't kick them out.
Huh?
Can't kick them out.
No, I didn't say you could. I said, but if they come and apply for a special use permit, then they're going to have insurance.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and we're going in circles at this point. So I'm
Yeah, I think so, too.
Okay,
But seriously, I think respectfully, Ms. Vera, I think Mr. Tommy's idea is worth researching.
Okay, well, I'm not disagreeing with that at all. Let's
Okay.
research it,
Yeah.
but if we can do that rather than just saying, we're going to,
A one size fits all to what you guys are both saying doesn't work.
Okay.
It doesn't.
I just want to jump in here for a second. From what I heard earlier, is most of these organizations that want to do a special event already have insurance. The Parrot Head that does the poker run has insurance for that. They can get insurance for if they want to do the Easter egg hunt.
Well, I think where that angst is coming from is we're trying to get other organizations and nonprofits to have, they'll go to Gun Barrel or they'll do the chili cook-off to get other organizations to see our park as a viable option to have events and bring community together. It's like setting barriers of entry, right? So we're $1,000 because you got to get this insurance, and now you got to pay a permit. And in other words, at some point you're going to price yourself out of the market.
well,
That's the only thing. I think that's the angst. I think it's that they decided not to do it, or they're not going to do it because I need insurance. I need to pay extra for insurance. I can go do it over here. Matter of fact, I think that Easter egg hunt's going to be something, But I think that levels, but I would say we're going to be the ones that get sued regardless, because whether they tripped on the sidewalk or ate an Easter egg, we just need to make sure we're fully covered with an umbrella, and because we're going to get sued, and the liability is going to end up on our lap regardless of the other organization.
And they might be coming here
I think
because
it's
Gun
subrogate.
Barrel's charging insurance.
Under
don't
that, under that
don't
model,
know.
under that theory of thinking, then we just say nobody has insurance out there. We're just going to use the city's insurance.
That could be a possibility because we're trying to promote the park to, and if that's something that we have to pay an extra couple $1,000s a year for to have an extra umbrella, so we don't have to make that barrier, that entry of a barrier entry for the park to use the park to make our park more attractive to other organizations. Then that's something that's part of our marketing cost.
I think you have no control at that point over liability out there, Greg. I think that is totally, that's not a good fiscal decision right there.
Well,
To-
managing
just to say
liability
that
is insurance.
nobody, can I finish?
Yeah.
That nobody out there that puts on an event would have to have insurance. I mean, that is just, I can't imagine, any city that would do that.
Well, I think if we'd be negligent to say we don't have insurance. Well, let's the city we don't get insurance, and let's let everybody else pay for the insurance. Then to me that would be negligent on our part. But I think for us to have the appropriate policy, since it's our park and our property, we're going to be sued anyway. I'm just saying I'm not either way. With Cheers, I'm for getting extra policies and being multi-insured. That's great, but I'm just saying it's a barrier that we need to just can discuss of the level of entry, the cost to come into our park compared to other parks. Just make sure we're fair with it, because at some point, we're going to price ourselves out of the market for people wanting to use our park.
We're not pricing ourselves out of market. We really only had one other person want to put an event on out here, and I think it's typical to use the insurance out there to do that. I think we've had one person that didn't totally agree with us, and I think that is not a reason to change this whole thing for one person. I think it does have some problems that needs to be fixed, but to sit there and say that the people could come out there and put on huge events and not accept any of the liability themselves is just not fiscally responsible. I think that the cities can absolutely should require insurance for anybody that needs a special use permit out there. I don't see how you could take that all of that liability on the city and without the rates going through the roof.
So we're going to kick this down the road, Julius, and do some research on this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So no action taken tonight?
Yeah, so the research, the action is definitely you guys. But the layers that Mr. Tom was mentioning, I'll work with him on that. Obviously won't be for tomorrow. But I'll kick it on
our
Mr. Tom.
TNL, people have to check the TNL piece too.
Yeah,
that whole deal.
Kim and I talked to them about this topic. I've shared some of those things with Mr. Tommy, and just like I said, just kicking it around of what the possibilities are with our insurance, our liabilities, our possibilities, our coverage limits. It's been a work in progress. So I'll work with Mr. Tommy on this one.
I can't imagine your TML insurance carrier not asking you if you're requiring insurance for special events too. That's probably a part of the application.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I'd love to know.
We'll find out.
Yeah, I just got to dive into it.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to ask you, are you?
That
That is a risk rating criteria when they're rating your policy. If you're asking for those people that are putting on events at your park, if they're going to have insurance too.
No, they do. So they ask you, and they do a risk assessment as well. So they ask you about your liabilities, the assets, how many people are expected to attend. They ask all these, not just on a per coverage basis of the event, but what the organization is like. So then you're diving deeper into you guys keep saying the Parrot Club. So you dive into what is a Parrot Club? What do they do? What do they have the event for? Like you get into all that. But again, take a step back. We need to start with the layer thing. We're too far down the line of deciding to the Parrot Club or not. And you're too far down the line to the Parrot Club or not. And you really want to get this layer.
Have you checked with the TML insurance company too on this?
Specifically about providing single event day coverage for a private organization, yes.
Okay.
But I'm still going back and forth with that.
Okay. All right. I think that's some part of your research will be to talk to them to see about what you know. Okay. So what are we going to do? Table this and look at the layers?
Yes. Mm-hmm. You need a motion to table.
Yeah, motion to table.
On agenda item number 17, I'll make a motion to table Section 20 of the ordinance 2024-10 Parks and Recreation for more research.
I second. Oh, sorry.
Robert Stocks.
Mm-hmm.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, 4-0 to table. Kimberly with Mike Demott making the motion, and Robert Stocks second. Agenda item number 18, discuss, consider and take action on reconsideration to amend ordinance number 2026-02 Capital Improvement Fund as presented by Mayor Vera Bennett. After the last council meeting, I know Greg and I talked, there were some things in the ordinance that were just a little bit broad, and so we just kind of tightened it up a little bit. Under the unrestricted capital funds, we were adding the words as set forth below, which were those like 6 categories. And on the initial cost, shall include all factors of the project, land, machinery, equipment. We added to specifically include the following. And then there was an expenditure made by city administrator not to exceed $7,500 without city approval. And we deleted that in its entirety. The rest of it remains the same. So, any discussion?
I can just make fun of, they were just minor cleanup changes to.
Yeah.
Mayor felt it would be a little bit more narrow in some areas, but it's still pretty. It's still, the spirit of the agreement still is council
It's
decision.
still pretty much the same. We just buttoned it up a little bit, just tightened it up just a little bit. Is there anything else?
No, I have nothing left.
Do you have a motion?
Let me get to the agenda.
Here, I make on agenda item number 18. I make a motion to amend ordinance 2026-2 Capital Improvement Fund as outlined for the 3 changes highlighted
On the
for the
summary
use of
agenda.
capital improvement funds, sections 1, section 2, and section 3. Sources and scope of the authorized funds. Section 2 is the capital improvement funds objectives, and section number 3, Kimberly, is the budgetary obligations. Okay, as listed on.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried 4-0, and the first was Mike Demott, second Greg Figueroa. Agenda item number 19, consider, discuss, and take action to adopt resolution 2026-02, the Texas Smart Buy Program. Julius?
So the police department came to Kimberly and I a couple weeks ago and talked about the need for blood kits, which are something we're running out of. However, the only approved vendors in Texas are 2 people that are on the buy, that are on this particular buy board. So as we've done before, to get any particular buy board, you have to pass a resolution. So for them to get blood kits, we need to adopt this resolution.
Would we buy anything else from them, or is that just what they do?
We could buy plenty of stuff from there.
Okay,
So,
all right.
yeah.
So
Just like
this
any
is,
other buy board.
this is another vendor for us to get a discount, just like buy board and.
Well, no, this is one of 2 only vendors.
Only,
we can
but-
get blood kits.
but another vendor we buy
recognized
from.
recognized by some state
All right.
agencies.
Got it. All right. Any other questions about this, council? I'll make a motion.
Any, hang on a
Discussion?
second. Any other discussion? Okay, do you have a motion?
On agenda item number 19, I make a motion to take action to adopt resolution 2026-02 Texas Smart Buy Program.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried 4-0. Kimberly, Mike Demott made the first, and Greg Figueroa made the second. Okay, council comments. We'll start with Mike Demott.
Nothing. We'll have a workshop tomorrow. Thanks, everybody, for coming, and we're making good progress on some of the issues that we have, and see you guys at the next meeting.
Okay, I just want to say thanks to everybody that came tonight. I want to remind you that there's an Easter egg hunt at the park that the 501c3 is putting on, and it's going to be it looks like to be a fantastic event. They're also going to have a senior egg hunt there for the seniors, which is a great thing. I want to thank Mike and Vicki Demott for, I know y'all supplied, the food pantry supplied some eggs, and we want to thank them for that. We also, March the 28th, there's a concert with Taylor Newman Band at the park. So we would like to see a lot of participation from the community there. So come out to that. These are going to be 2 great events that are put on by this 501c3. And I know they've been working real hard on this. I know Casey Lee's worked really hard on the Easter to make it a very good event for the for the children of the community. So, and we'll see y'all at the workshop tomorrow. Okay, Tommy?
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for coming out. Thank the staff for all your work day in and day out for the city. And I appreciate the conversation on the grenade I threw in the room. The whole point of it was to get some talking going, because I think we've got some things we got to do to grow as a city and adapt and be able to react to different situations.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much for that. And see everybody at the workshop tomorrow.
All right. Greg?
Thank y'all for coming out, and Mike, Matt, thanks for coming in and explaining that, and your company's willingness to give the city a 6-month trial free of charge to really see if it works for our city. I think hopefully it works out as planned, and we provide a good service, but thank y'all.
And thank you everyone for coming. I appreciate it, and thank you staff. You did a great job.
Okay. Future agenda items. Does anybody have anything, Mike?
I have nothing, just want to know.
Tommy?
No.
Greg?
Nope.
Robert?
Nope.
All right. I bet we'll have some more by the next meeting. Okay. Do you have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn at the March 19th meeting at 8:04. Second.
Greg? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Kimberly 4-0. Mike DeMont made the first. Greg make the second. We'll adjourn at 8:04 p.m. Y'all have a great evening.